Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to Power of Mind Forums and CSA Bangalore chapter CXO Insights, a Women Leadership Special, a LinkedIn Live event, episode 220. We are celebrating women's leadership in the month of March. What we talk about is her voice, her power, her story, her journey, and her impact. Today, we are discussing on a topic of AI security governance, a playbook regulations, risks, real world lessons. To have this topic discussed, we have the honor of having Rashmi Iyer with 2 decades of experience, a CISP, GRC manager, supply security risk manager, and DevSecOps. Without further ado, let's welcome our esteemed speaker to the podcast event. Hi Rashmi, welcome to our podcast. How are you today, madam?
Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to everyone. I'm doing well, thank you. Prem, how are you?
Uh, Good, Rashmi. A small intro about yourself to the audience to know you better.
Yeah, so hello everyone. I'm Rashmi. I've been in this industry for the past 20 years almost. Currently, I'm working with NXP Semiconductors as a security manager, global manager in supplier security, and business resilience core committee member. So I would like to thank Prem and CSA Bangalore for having me here today.
Thank you for that, Rashmi. Thank you for that intro and welcome again. Rashmi, as you know, security, AI security governance is evolving and it's a field where it's continuous change. From your perspective, how do you balance, especially innovation and security, when designing AI solutions for your organization?
I would say primarily both innovation and security go hand in hand. This helps us to adapt a robust GRC setup in the organization. With GRC, what we InfoSec guys we say is governance, risk, and compliance. So they address each and every part of all the solutions and the work that goes on, where you say these are the policies or the structures that you should have. The risks are addressed, and where you have various regulatory frameworks and so on, how do you comply to all that? So they overlook the entire setup. So when I say GRC setup, I would mostly relate to this. Excuse me. So where we say that both innovation and security go hand in hand, it's also that we need the organization to have a clear policy guidelines and controls. And as we grow and as we develop new things with innovation, we have to adhere to these industry standards, be it NIST, be it GDPR, or any of them. And when we are implementing these solutions, we should have a security mindset. And this way, we can balance the innovation and security. And especially, what I feel is that security should not be considered as an overhead or an afterthought that, oh, let me first implement or, create certain thing and then go about, adding the security layer. Then it never works. Then it will be a patchy work, as we say. But to have a more robust solution, I would say they have to be, embedded, or, they have to go hand in hand always. Sorry, Prem, I cannot hear you.
Was on mute. Sorry about that. Security goes in hand, so that's where I think it is going to be a primary focus that we should look at. Is with that, with the rapid pace of AI adoption, uh, many organizations are still grappling with regulations. What is one regulatory challenge that has slowed down the AI progress for you or your clients, and how do we recommend to overcome such things?
So I would say it's a very good question, or rather a tricky question, I would say. And as you rightly said, AI is ever evolving. do we have an oversight of the growth of it? Because it's growing rapidly everywhere.
Hmm.
And with this rapid growth on AI, we do not know what is going on and in which field. So there is an aspect of AI in almost every field of our life.
Yeah.
So, and who is going to be responsible or accountable for the decisions that our AI systems or the solutions they take? Say there is an AI tool which helps you invest in stocks,
Hmm.
and some wrong decisions, you end up losing a lot of money. Who's going to be accountable for it?
Okay.
Do we know? So there's actually no oversight that we have, and there for this we as organizations have to come together, and we need to follow these standards that are there and use them and build our own framework to monitor or to look over these aspects. Also, you know there are so many how should I say, these regulations, what we call, and where you actually said challenges, through regulatory challenges which are slowing down the progress. What I feel is that regulations are not there to slow you down,
Hmm.
and that is where I have a challenge, or I find this question quite tricky, because my opinion is that regulations don't slow you down, they are there to protect you. If we adhere to it and we implement them well, or our controls implement these regulatory requirements well, they are there to protect the organization and to safeguard us. That tomorrow, if there's a credit score that we are working on, it's a very innovative solution, credit score analysis. But say this data is in hand of some bad actors, and there is no pseudonymization, anonymization on them, we are not following the regulatory requirements that are there. And in turn, if there is any breach, if it goes in the wrong hands, the organization has to pay heavily. So, yes, implementing those pseudonymizations or anonymizations may slow you down, you could say, but then without them, it's a huge risk or a huge challenge to deal with it. So, if there is something that is missing, I would say is an oversight, or the challenge currently is that. But I don't call regulatory requirements as a challenge or something that would
See,
stop.
so you are saying regulations are there to protect you rather than being considered as a bottleneck. Okay.
Exactly.
With that, as a leader, what is the most critical piece of advice you would like to give to your team? Because team is the one who's going to integrate systems, right? And these systems are in a regulated environment, especially in terms of governance. So, how do you look at this piece of information that needs to be flowing down to the team?
So when we talk of an integration, or you know getting into a new solution or so, which we would like to integrate it into our system, we're talking about a change.
Hmm.
And as we say, change is everywhere, change is inevitable, whatever we say. But when it comes to addressing a change, how does an organization deal with it? Or an organization that has been set up well? What we call as change control boards, the CCBs, get
Mhm.
involved. They draw up your requirements, or they scope it out well, and then there is a design, and all those life cycle, those phases are there of your project. And I would say that something similar is also necessary each and every time we integrate an AI system. So it is nothing different according
Hmm.
to me. But yes, what I would like to emphasize on here is, do perform your risk assessments when you are getting tools or systems, solutions from a third party. Ensure that you validate or assess them well before you integrate them. So perform these risk assessments on them. See, you should also ensure that how they are going to integrate, where could there be an impact. And at the
Mm.
end, I would also say that continuously keep on monitoring them so that you know how they are behaving in your network. So, with just integrating, we don't finish it. But
Okay.
when you keep on monitoring it, you would know how they are behaving in your environment and where we would like to tweak them or how we would like to address or enhance them.
Mm.
I'd like to give an example of integrating an AI system that I had recently worked on. So we were implementing a Gen AI solution in our. So what we did was this end-to-end risk assessment and see where and how the impact would be, if necessary, work in a different environment or so on. And then one should ensure that, because these many of these gen ai solutions actually integrate with your source code. So are you really giving them access to your ips? Are you at that level where you can give them control to a certain set of data or so on? All these aspects have to be verified, and only then you can design or get into integrating a system, is what I would majorly say, when we talk about integrating systems.
Okay. So with that, when we say integrity, see how is that we are taking governance into part. So my pointer to you on when is integration is AI governance has to have or has a direct impact on the risk management, right? And how do you ensure that AI systems are not only compliant but also ethical and human centric in their decision making process? Because as you said when you started the session, we spoke about the stock and where if a AI generation you can get into loss. Now, how
Mm-hmm.
do you look at
Excuse me.
these AI systems are uh, not only compliant to the systems that we are building, but also ethical and human centric in the decision process?
So here, I mean, majorly continuing with what we previously discussed on the change aspect,
Hmm.
what we also have to ensure is we do an impact analysis. So where we are adopting a new AI system or implementing it, we need to know what are the impact areas for this. In short, impact analysis is your risk assessment. So I would suggest that we should refer to the Organization of Economic Cooperative Development, that is their OECD, and their AI principles. So there are few that are listed there, which give you a reference on how each of these principles, how they impact, or how what would be the risks associated with those kind of solutions or implementation. I would suggest that anyone who is trying to set up or adopt an AI system, they should first go and check, do these kind of perform these impact analysis. And by doing that, what we are doing is you are trying to know what are your inherent risks. And
Hmm.
when we are talking about those inherent risks, what you need to do is look at these other standards that are there or your own defined framework. Look at the control measures that we have defined against those for those risks, and then implement them. And this way, not only we try to mitigate these risks that are there, but we would also have a more ethical and a human centric approach. And also, excuse me, where we say that we implemented the control measure or so on, there's always a responsible behavior for us towards the society. So we should ensure or go and review those outputs or the decision making that the tool is performing on behalf of us. And with that, there is always going to be a human touch to it, and that would you know make these systems more ethical and human centric. So even here, if I try to give a real world example here, I would say think of it that tomorrow in high courts we have an AI tool taking decisions for us
Okay.
or passing judgments.
Hmm.
Would anyone have a say on the judgment that is being passed? So,
Interesting point. Actually speaking, did not think in that lines. Okay.
so
Yeah.
it should be used for analysis and so on, but at the end, there should be a human touch to it in such a way that you are able to deliver that judgment in a more empathetical manner and provide the necessary further steps so that if someone needs to challenge or that decision or that judgment, they still have a scope. But with a machine or with a tool, it's a closed system for me.
Yeah.
I wouldn't know where to go.
True. Now, with that, see, I think what you're talking about is the role play that is going to happen when a AI system or a empathetic situation comes in for a judgment. Now, how my next pointer was similar to that, and it was related to aptly saying that what role do you see empathy and human centric leadership play in mitigating AI risk, especially when dealing with sensitive data and personal privacy concerns? So, my pointer was that because you spoke about a very important point where it is taking decisions which can be challenged again. So, how do you look at this, Rashmi?
So here I would still continue with those points that I have mentioned. So having a human centric approach in AI, especially in today's world, it's a key thing having a human touch to it,
Hmm.
and it helps in building a relation with the other party, be it the consumer, the user, or anyone, whoever is on the other side. We have to build a relation. It's not always that you provide an analysis and it's closed. That we live in a society where we have to build those relations. We have those emotions. We have those feelings. So that connections, those bonds have to be there. And this having that human touch to it brings the best of both the worlds. It is good for us. We get to learn, or that data that we learn from our consumers could always be used as an input to
Hmm.
drive better outputs, or better uh, decision making from these tools. And even for us, that relation is maintained, and it adds, as I said, those emotions and empathy and all wherever necessary. Here again, when I gave an example of high court last time, I would say that, think of a healthcare sector,
Hmm.
or, someone visits a doctor, there have been, so an AI system has done a diagnosis of a disease. And if we are going to just give that report and let the system take the decision, what are the next steps, the person, the patient, is going to draw a blank, say, hey, what's going on? What do I do next? And that is where having a face to the whole decision making, having someone in front of you whom you can talk to, gives a whole different perspective where you can query or where you can ask them. Yes, these tools also you can, but would it be the same feeling, would be my question. And we let the doctor decide, or let the doctor decide on the course of how he wants to deal with that particular disease for that patient.
I
So
think I think you are touching upon something on the healthcare, which I think AI is already taken up many things now. The robots are doing surgery, and there are cases where the doctor is sitting here in India, and there is a surgery happening in the US or UK. That's the situation that we are seeing at the moment, where the precision of any automation and how you can do surgery without having a person physically there is completely the automation that AI is going to take over. I think that's where I think we see healthcare, at least we've seen that. Now, looking at that, as an executive, how do you convince stakeholders that AI governance and security are long-term investments rather than just regulatory hurdles? Because everybody feels security is one thing which is always a burden, right? So it is a cost to the organization. So how do you take this pointer?
I would say, see, AI is buzzing everywhere. Let's agree to that. So,
Yeah, yeah,
but it was first coined back in 1956 by John McCarthy.
yeah.
And the recent buzz is majorly with the advent of ChatGPT and the likes that we have. And where these AIs are majorly data hungry, as we say,
Mm, mm,
and where they are playing a big part in our homes. They're there in some or the other way in our system. They hear or they play a role in our daily life in a big way. But do you want to expose some personal data of yours to the outer world?
mm,
Where do you say this is my personal space and I do not want any of these AI systems to be around me, which are not, breaking into my private space or so on. So that is where I think this AI governance plays a big, huge role. And it helps us define these boundaries, and where as an individual I can say that these are my boundaries. When I'm talking about a large organization, it's huge because you have a lot of data, you need to segregate them accordingly. And where we talk not only about the segregation but the entire data protection, and
mm.
with the continuous monitoring that we do on how these tools are accessing our data or what they do and how they perform these decision makings and so on, the outputs, if they are monitored, at the end they are going to only protect us, safeguard us. And that is be my suggestion, that don't see the governance aspect or the regulatory aspects or the security aspects as overhead. They are there to safeguard your systems, I mean the entire organization, from the untowards incidents that can happen because of it.
You touched upon an important point where you said AI governance part. Now, AI governance or AI has already potentially or disrupt almost all the industries that are there, right? It is got into that space. How do you look security governance or regulations to have a direct led to the industry transformation? And can you share one example where AI governance and regulations have an impact on the industries that got transformed?
So implementation of a robust AI governance framework will help in minimizing the risk. That's no. And if this control measures are also well implemented, we have a certain accountability across various levels. And this helps us in mitigating lots of risks, the AI related risks like biases and so on. And which in the end will protect these industries, as I previously
Mm,
said. And one good example, I would say, would be of the supply chain resilience that has come up with the overall AI mechanism. So there are many organizations that use these RFID automations to manage their warehouse, and for tracking the flow of the packages and so on. So they keep a track, they know how and when to expect certain things. And with this, if you are also adding a layer of analysis, you get to see what is the power consumption, what is the data analytics. So I think one of the areas where you actually see this disruption, I would say this AI has done wonders with the for this whole supply chain aspect. And with the right flow, with the right automation, and the right data, we can see really good results. And there are many companies or organizations who are benefiting from these aspects.
no, with that, when we start integrating and stuff, we always have common challenges and some of the blockers that will come in, right? What are though some of the pitfalls the senior leaders should watch out when scaling to AI solutions, especially around compliance and security risks.
As I said, AI has been there since a long time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So one shouldn't get affected by these buzzwords. So I would say that when we are looking at such AI scaling or AI, scaling up the AI solutions, check the business models. Look at your strategy. If necessary,
Mm,
redefine the business models and see, get the experts involved. Let them, analyze on how, where, what are your weakness, what are your strengths, and then you redefine your business model in such a way that would help you scale or address these solutions. But with that, you also need to create a lot of awareness, training
mm,
and awareness, where you also need to perform multiple risk assessments for throughout the model life cycle that we have, and early detection of issues and debugging them timely, something that would, you know not only be beneficial but would address a lot of challenges that we have. But yes, one size doesn't fit all. So where everyone else is moving to AI or scaling up, we need to also check where the benefits lie, and it should be a strategical decision, and just not, go with the flow kind of a thing. But strategically, we need to define where and how we can, implement these things. See, what is today's cutting edge is soon going to be legacy in future.
yeah.
So
I think your point again brings in an important pointer where you said the way the LLMs are growing, the way changes are happening, and the way it is getting adopted. As you rightly said, today's technology may not be the right one maybe a year down the lane. So that's going to be uh, absolutely true, and people have to adopt to the such things. Now, given that exponential rise of AI tools, what advice to the leaders on fostering a culture where continuous learning to keep up with evolving AI security threats? Because uh, when you look at AI security threats, the more you use technology, the hackers also use the similar technology to hack you back, right? So, how do you look at this pointer, Rashmi?
you rightly said that, not only are the AI systems evolving, everyone around it is also evolving. So the threat landscape, as you mentioned rightly, the hackers are also evolving. The threat landscape is also changing every day. And to stay ahead, we have to create that kind of awareness and improve our learning techniques. And if need be, or if it helps, use these AI tools to even educate us in such a way that it will improve our knowledge and help us stay ahead or in this whole game that is there. And the other key aspect, I would say, is to assess or execute or have audits of these systems. So you find those gaps on a regular basis, remediate them. And what we need to do is adapt, enhance, and keep improving.
Okay. Now, with that, see, there are a lot of things that are changing, right? Now, AI regulations are often criticized also, right, for being reactive rather than proactive, right? So, in your view, what should be an ideal regulatory framework that AI security should look at? Maybe I will not say next 10 years, I will say next 5 years at least. What could be one framework that has to be built around it, Rashmi?
See, we're talking about regulations. Law generally, after the crime happens, only then the legal part arises, right?
Right, right.
No, I would. I don't know. I'm not really sure whether we are ever going to be reactive to this whole thing. But yes, I would say that, I'm 5, 10 years, or rather, where you said 5 years down the line, if you see, I feel there would be more controls from a regulatory aspect on, how we store the data, how are the transparency. There
Hmm.
should be clear guidelines that, there are already, the NIST and the EU AI Act already mentioning about how we need to create that transparency and all. But still, there would be a more wider regulatory aspect where, more controls towards the AI risks of bias, hallucinations, and so on. And also, I think there would be more controls towards the inclusive part, or how we address sustainability
Hmm.
with these AI systems. And what I expect, or what I feel would happen in the next 5 years, or would like to really see, is the standards like ISO 27K or the AICPA, they having some control measures for which they assess these tools and, find these gaps. So where we have these AI solutions, they get assessed, and it should be made mandatory that they give us these data, these aspects or these controls for these AI systems. That was something that would be interesting, and I would really look forward to that.
Wonderful on that. Now, with that, can how do we handle a tension between AI performance and minimizing risks, right? Because uh, when you say performance, again, there is something that you'll have to tweak it, right? Especially when high stake environments like healthcare and finance are involved. These are two things which can bring an organization down when or a person down. When you take about healthcare, when you tell about finance, it can bring down the whole organization or one entity completely down. So what is your take on it?
See, you've rightly asked those two key, or those high risk ones, healthcare and finance. And both these are classified as high risk, or categorized as high risk under the EU AI Act also.
Mm,
And definitely, when you're high risk, tensions would run high always. And how do we go about minimizing the security risk? They themselves, I mean, both the healthcare sector and the finance sector, if we take them as example, they themselves have a lot of regulatory requirements
mm,
that come along with it. And to address them itself, you are covering a lot of, or you're, where you're implementing those control measures, you're addressing a lot of risk. But with that said, the EU AI Act has multiple other requirements for these. For these high risk category, and one has to abide by them to, you know uh, let others use this system, so that those that would help from a regulatory or from a risk or a security risk aspect. But to maximize performance together with this, I would say that implementing these measures itself will guide them towards an increased and improved performance, because when you are looking at these control measures that are in place, we're also talking about the quality of data that enters this system. And as we said a few minutes ago, that AI systems are data hungry,
mm,
and where you feed in the data, we don't want a garbage in garbage out kind of a thing, but it should be more good quality of data that we input. And with that, not only we improve the performance, or we have better performance, but we also reduce the chances of having security issues with any kind of data that goes in, and which is not, cleared
mm.
up. And it overall, a good data would help, or good quality data would help in good decision making, and that way we would have better performance and good results.
Now, coming to performance, we take care something like that, and Sometimes we've been talking about issues, right? Now, can you share a moment where an unexpected AI governance issue led to a breakthrough, and both technology and leadership of your organization were very happy with that kind of an implementation? Any such instances?
So, hmm, I'm not sure I will call it an exact AI governance issue, but something interesting I would say with this governance and risk aspect of it is we were not getting to we were not getting good threat intels on
Hmm.
these third parties, and every day search hundreds of places to get that data, but we got an AI tool with and we integrated within our system in such a way that we shared the data of our suppliers or our third parties, and in turn it was giving us good monitoring, good tracking. We were getting to know their trends and so on. So when there are changes in numbers, we were able to track them. We could reach out to them and say, hey, we are seeing different numbers, any issues or so on. So we
Hmm.
were taking a more proactive approach. And where they were no organization currently can say that I'm safe, I'm secure, but yes, where there were these public disclosures, so these tools used to track them, provide us that insight, and helped us with beautiful automation of creating those tickets, and we could track it to closure. So that way, yes, this was an overall a governance and a risk aspect, I would say. Not, it's not only AI governance, but overall with this we got a lot of benefit, and we were able to track our third parties much better, which was also definitely uh, good learning and a good
I think
breakthrough for us. And even the leadership liked it because they were able to see how their third parties are and what are the results of where these incidents are coming from. And we were also able to safeguard us much better. We were ready, we were prepared to defend us better.
You're right in saying that, because we can bring in a lot of systems, but we don't expect the vendor systems also to be aligned to what we are having, right? So that is one challenge when we see integration of any tool or any system from a vendor, to look at integration and see how their systems also are secure and stuff like that. Now, looking at that model, when an AI model go wrong, the consequences can be severe, right? And with that, what is your strategy from preventing a blackout, right? So it should not be a blackout decisions. And how do you install transparency across teams? Because while dealing with teams, there are gaps in understanding. So how do you look at this piece, Rashmi?
So here, as we just a couple of questions ago, I was saying that AI systems are data hungry. We need to provide good quality data and so
Mm.
on. And when you provide good quality data, it helps in training or in the decision making in a much better way. So the interpretation of that decision also is much easy. So that way, these black box decisions could be limited. But yes, let's accept it, in a high risk sector we can see that these black box decisions can be fatal or can be really costly, however we put it. And there are certain tools that are specific to certain sectors and so on, where they can break this mystery. It can help you break
Mm.
down and interpret those decision makings, which you know if we implement such things, if we feel necessary, and if we're seeing multiple black box decisions where we are unable to understand how we came to that conclusion, then such tools definitely will help. And as I said, it's always good to have those impact assessments done early enough to know where our impacts are going to be, and to address those mitigations and those control measures in place will always help us reduce this immediately.
Okay, so you're saying the controls play a major role, right? So that is where we say whether it is internal systems or external systems. If you have a control mechanism and a strong change management, I think that is what you are saying that it can. Now, with AI risk often being involved in balancing immediate business needs and with long-term societal implications, how do you ensure ethical alignment of AI governance at your organization without sacrificing growth? That's when I say organization, it can be not specific to the organization that we are looking at or working with. I would like to make it very clear here. We are talking saying that organization to be any organization that you want to implement such controls. So your point on it, Rashmi.
Yeah, again, I would, say that we have to build or create these frameworks in our organization, which are based on, you can refer to the EU AI Act, the NIST, and even the OECD, and prepare a guideline, a framework for a specific organization based on your needs, because
Mm.
each sector may have their own specific regulatory requirements also. And when we are integrating or when we are implementing these AI system, adopting these new AI system, we should ensure that these regulatory, we are still complying with those regulatory aspects and we are not forgetting about them. We're just looking at AI governance alone. So it has to be a good mix of these frameworks or these standards, and then these control measures should be implemented in such a way that we have a good balance of our solution, where uh, we have this improvements that we see what with this AI system. We are growing, we are improving, and with that, with these standards and frameworks that we are putting in the measures against them, those will those will ensure that your ethical your adoption of these systems are more aligned to the ethical approach of the AI, what the AI suggests or the AI act suggests rather.
I think with that, I think what you are saying is that you'll have to look at the way systems are aligned to the organization, and how do we look at alignment which enables growth. Also, is what I take your point there. With this, I want to take the last question because we are running out of time here to take some questions that are there. The last question is, if you could say one way or one pointer of advice for younger self evolving the world of AI, what is the key piece of information or advice that you would like to give, and that could be fast tracked the success of the people who are joining in the industry for uh, cybersecurity in specific, and now with AI being an addition to it.
So I would say that there are going to be changes. Things are going to evolve
Mm.
always, and for that we always say that keep learning, keep evolving with the technology. And I would say the more you learn, it is not going to be a disadvantage. It is always going to it is always going to be advantageous. The more you learn, you can implement things better. You'll have a better understanding to things, and nothing goes waste.
Yeah.
Nothing goes waste. So you know how to implement or how to use it in some way or the other in your career. So my message to the younger self would be learn, read more, and evolve with the technology.
Thank you for that, Rashmi. I would like to summarize the pointers that we discussed. Before that, I have two questions, I think, which are on the audience thing, which I would like to bring it up here. One is from, I think, give me a second. One is from Bimal Kumar. AI systems leverage mostly on cloud. Cloud technology mostly leverages the US based tech, Azure, AWS, and GCP. What is the contingency plan? We need to be in mindful. So, that data resides within the regional containers and controls? This is the question that I have from you.
So here, there are these rules that these country specific, or in certain areas in US there are more county specific laws also that are there. So these regulations and so on, where they mention, so I know specifically for the EU that the data cannot move outside of EU, and so on. So that way there would be certain similar requirements that based on those aspects, I think it would be those constraints and those controls, if they're applied appropriately, think that would help us here.
Vimal, I'll add to what Rashmi is saying is now every organization or every country is looking at data privacy laws. Like Brazil has their own thing, GDPR is there for European Union, and CCPA is there for US and stuff. Now India is coming up with DPDP Act, right? So I think the body is getting formed, and the rules and regulations are very strict in terms of how the data is getting processed, right? Now, to add to you, Vimal, a classic example would be our Aadhaar card data that is there. Now, governments or the processing agencies have to give the details of how it is collected, how many documents are related, how is that it is getting stored, where is it getting stored, what is the archive policy, and what is the deletion policy. And once the deletion is done, you will have to confirm to the person that this data is being processed and it is getting deleted in this period. So that data controls are going to be very strict, and the fines with DPDP are going to be very high, right, Vimal? So with that, I think India's way of looking at digital data processing is going to be very, very strict. And I think with that coming into effect, I think all the governments, even the Maharashtra government that is put up the budget, has heftily put a pointer where they would look at cybersecurity as a key factor, right? So these are the pointers that the government of India also is looking at, and these points are going to be very, very critical for our data, because every data that is going to be collected is going to be anonymized, sensitized, and masked going forward. So that is what I would say to the data, that point that you are saying, how it is to be controlled, and regional containers within. So all are going to be either, now as you know, on Azure, AWS, or GCP, there are zones and regions, right? These will play a very important role. So that's where we stand at the data privacy part, and that data thing will be settled in those regional places. We will hope we've answered your question. Any pointers, please do put your comments or pointers there. Rashmi or myself will add more data to that, right? So with this, I think, Rashmi, we are at the top of the hour, and thank you for joining us. And we have streamed this live onto YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. We hope this discussion you found valuable, and thank you for joining us. Our next podcast is going to be on episode 221, Synergy Unlocks Women and Men Driving Growth Together. That is happening tomorrow at 6:30 p.m. Looking forward to see you again. Any last pointers that you would like to add, Rashmi, before we conclude?
I would like to thank everyone here, and especially Prem and CSA team, CSA Bangalore chapter.
Yeah.
Thank you. It was wonderful being part of this show. Thank you.
Thank you, Rashmi. Thank you for being here. And with this, we are closing the session. Thank you for being here. Good day and bye.